Hey everyone, this is a walkthrough and introduction of the Lionheart Creations Fairchild 24 series. This is a new package that just came out recently by my firm, and this will just show you the basics of the aircraft and what all is included in the package. Basically, the package has two different airframes. You have two different power plants. You have the Ranger version, which has the six-cylinder Ranger engine. Designation is Fairchild 24R, R for Ranger. And so you have a series of these. And then we'll also have a Fairchild 24 with a Warner engine. Let's pick this one. This one has a really nice Warner radial. These aircraft come with their own sound packs. You have a nice Warner radial engine sound pack, very excellent, well made. And then you also have a Ranger engine sound pack for a straight 6 engine, and it too is excellent. This paint scheme, some of these paint schemes are really nice, first rate. They don't show any damage or chips. This would be a show aircraft, something that was recently painted, restored from the ground up, no damage to it, no bugs on it. It's all waxed down, polished, cleaned, armor-rolled, ready for a nice Sunday flight. And then some of the other aircraft feature ton. Let's find Blue Louise. Well, she's an excellent example. You have two bush planes. This is one of them. She's had a rough life. She's got a lot of paint fading. The white paint is fading off the blue. The blue's really doing bad. There's lots of oil and chipped paint and you name it, she's got it. There's a lot of mud flung around. And if you go inside, you'll notice that there's a miscellaneous switch here on the end, on the far right of the toggles. And you flip that, and your wheel skirts will disappear. So now you have a bush plane version you're ready to put down into a nice bumpy grassy field. So that's one of the different examples of how extreme these paint schemes can be. Even on the interior, let's see if I can highlight that better with lights. No. You can see that this interior is just, it's seen some really better days. We're talking, it's got scuffs and grime, maybe even a little mold. It's just it's had too much moisture and humidity damage, and her instrument panel is just all chipped up, and vibration and flexing of the instrument panel has caused chipping between the panels where they rub, so you got lots of chips missing in the paint. Whereas on a nice restored version Fairchild, you're going to have some custom treatments done to it. Let's see. Let's look at this one. Here's a nice restored version, and this one has some really nice mahogany burled wood, and they didn't have that in the original aircraft, and so you have that nice little custom treatment. You have no scratches. The paint, the crinkle paint on the panel is in first-rate condition. It's baby is ready to win some awards at a fly-in. It's got all nice, like a crushed velour interior, and she's just ready to go. It's all restored and cleaned up. Everything's looking good on her. So that shows you some of the extremes in the paint schemes. that are available. Sometimes the paint schemes can make the aircraft look totally different than than the others, and they can have the exact same mesh framework. So that's kind of a neat feature, I think. That's how when I go to buy aircraft, it's nice to have different versions of them, and so what this package does is it takes full advantage of that, with using different types of paints. Let's look at the outside. Some people, I've actually had one person complain that my aircraft was slightly off here on the Fairchild. He said that the landing gear wasn't as wide as the actual one. Well, I go off of blueprints and photographs when I build my aircraft, and I actually used a photograph for the side that was done. It had no perspective in it, so the aircraft couldn't be more precise. I duplicate the amount of ribbings and rivets and all. So as you can see, you can count these and go to a standard Fairchild, not the early version with the four-cylinder engine, but most all airframes will have this many ribs across the top and on the wings. And you'll notice, like on the wings, they have the ribbing tape that's underneath that's on top of the fabric underneath the paint. They'll have ribbings. The rudder on the Fairchild is actually shaped wood, I believe spruce, and so it's a shaped, sculpted piece that's right in this area. And so you'll notice there's no ribs on that. The back of the rudder and the actual hinged elevators are ribbed, and while the fronts of the control surfaces are wood. These wings are fabric over a wood structure, and they have a spruce spar, just in case you're curious about the history of the aircraft and how it was made. The airframe, fuselage, is a steel tubing welded, and then it uses wooden runners for the belly and the top of the aircraft to give it that shape that she has. She has sort of like a little hunchback shape if you look at it. She's got there's like a little hump towards the top, and then it turns into a nice flowing little rudder area. This little door in the back, it does not open, but it's well detailed, and it is the battery door. Let's see if I can get a better view of that. Right here on the co-pilot side and the back tail is where your battery was. You would undo these two little screws here, and it flips open. Pull your battery out and charge it. Check the water in it. The fuel tanks had a steel sheet of metal cover over them, probably more like aluminum. And you take that off, you could access your fuel tank, take it out, repair it, put new ones in, etc. Some of these had extended range tanks. On your flaps, you have split flaps, which means the tops do not hinge down, only the bottom part. So, and they're manual. There's no noise. It's just a little hand grip, sort of like on a Piper Apache, Piper little four-seater. Anyway, over here you can see little details underneath the wings, like your fuel drains for testing your fuel for water. A little bit of fuel stain on there. You got your your little round access plates. All the neat little details of the aircraft. You have the old vintage teardrop shaped little nav lights. Let's see if I can zoom in on that. These are your little casted aluminum nav lights. They have a little hold on spring, and you pop that off and your lens would come out and you could replace the bulb. I got to tell you though, I don't have the best effects for like on the tail. She's not going to have the best light effect for the rudder. It's a big light. One of the neat features about the Fairchild 24 series is the various appointments on the interior and exterior. Like you see this doorknob, it's a nice little teardrop shape. That was an antique. That was a top of the line automotive doorknob from back then, the late 1930s, early 1940s. And in the interior, you also had the same appointments as well. The gentleman by the name of Raymond Loewy did design work for Fairchild to make the inside of the Fairchild 24 a really neat aircraft. It had a touch of automotive flair to it. It had really nicely done um, straps, leather straps for getting yourself into the aircraft. She's a little tall. And then doorknobs, automotive doorknobs. You had opening windows. And that was a neat feature. And so you had that, and you had nice wood trim here and there. You had wood trim in these little window sills in the back. And most of the civilian version Fairchild 24s had like plush interiors and automotive style seats. So that was a really nice feature. In this aircraft, there was several different versions of panels, and I thought this one looked the nicest. Some of them just had several gauges on them. The military version for the Argus, that was also designed for just basic surveillance aircraft, coastal watching for looking out for U-boats. They just had a very sparse instrument panel. This one is loaded with instrument cut openings and a glove box, and I've hidden a nice little Garmin 400 series GPS in there. And why don't we take it up for a flight? Alright, I've slewed the aircraft over to the runway, and I've also chosen a different interior, a different aircraft. This one is a long-nose Fairchild 24R Ranger model with a nice tweed interior and some blue leather seats that go with that navy blue fuselage trim on the outside. And she has some nice brown walnut burled wood with a fine gold pinstriping underneath that lacquer finish. And I love doing these interiors. That's one of my personal things I love about doing this. Anyway, it's just some nice little wood trim here on the side. This is a step plate. When you're fueling your airplane on the outside, you climb up on the landing gear. Let's see if I can show you here. You climb up on the tire. If it doesn't have wheel skirts, you climb up on the tire and then step up onto this plate right here to fuel your plane. The wheel skirts had a little structure, some steel tubing underneath the wheel skirt and this little plate, and so you could step on that on top of the wheel skirt and then step on this part and get to your fuel cap and fuel your plane. That way you didn't need a ladder. A ladder would be kind of hindered by that landing skirt, landing wheel. Anyway, let's go ahead and before I want to show you how this works. The luggage out there, it's really cool luggage that I actually got from photographs of luggage that were online at eBay. In the old days, when you traveled around the world, you would collect decals from the different hotels and cities, and you put them on your suitcases. So those are like 1930s suitcases, and they only show up when your engine is off and when your battery switch is off. So when you switch that on, they disappear. They're in the back. Now, another thing about the Fairchild is she has two fuel selectors, and your fuel selectors, when you boot up, it's kind of odd. With Flight Simulator, you can only have one fuel selector per engine. So if you have 4 engines, you can have 4 fuel selectors, but some aircraft have 2 and 3 fuel selectors in one engine. So we developers have to find ways to work around that, and there's even more bugs inside of that, trying to get them to work perfectly. So on the set that's in the Fairchild 24, you have you have a left tank and right tank selector. When the selectors are pointed up, they're off. When the selectors are pointed towards the engine, they're on. So when you got fuel flowing towards the engine, when the knob is pointed forward, that selector is on. So right now my right tank is on and my left tank is off. Now you can left click these and they rotate through the different selections. This is both forward, so both tanks are on. This is left tank only, and this is off. You can also mouse wheel these. So let's go ahead and we're going to go to both fuel tanks on, and then so our battery switch is on, our fuel's on, and then our mixture, you'll notice it's not red, it's black. Well, that's why they did them in the old days. So on this, some of these knobs, and I think I've done that on this aircraft, there'll be a white resin knob. Kind of neat. That's what they had back in the cars in the old days, and this had all like automotive knobs and treatments. There's a white resin knob there, white resin knob here, and so anyway, so you would find your mixture knob with the placard. Go ahead and push that in, and let's give her just a little fuel. Your primer's over here. Let's prime it. Brakes are now on, and battery's on. Let's go ahead and start it. This is your this is your magneto switch, and it has a built-in starter. So let's go ahead and start it. Alright, let's go ahead and release the brake. We're going to go from 1 notch of flaps. Let's make sure that's 1 notch. That's 1 notch. And we have a little neat view for looking over the cowling. Hit the A key on your keyboard, and you can see it's sort of you've got your head over to the left as far as possible, and you can see over the nose a little better. So let's go ahead and take off. Once the tail lifts up, we can then go back to our regular view. With the flaps down, she takes off pretty quick. So lift the flaps. Now you'll notice that you have these neat little straps, these little high detailed straps here, and they use the animation from the compass. And so as you're flying around, they'll move forward, back, and they might, let's get back to where I was going, they might tend to bother you. Like, let's say you're trying to land the aircraft and you're adjusting your angle and all. Well, if they start to get on your nerves, they don't bother me, but I've had complaints. So what I did was I put a click in on the strap bolt that allows you to hide them if they get on your nerves, so that's kind of nice. And let's see, let's go ahead and do some flying. You'll notice that she took off pretty easy with flaps down. The Fairchild 24 was just about a stall aircraft. She could land at a fairly slow speed, not super slow, but with flaps, she had the flaps option. She was really good at landing slow, and you also had that big heavy-duty landing gear. Alright, I've changed aircraft. Once again, this is an American reconnaissance version, one of the Argus series. These were originally designed for the British. British put in an order for these, and the Americans ended up ordering them for Civil Air Patrol as well. Later on integrated them into the Air Corps. But anyway, let's go to the inside. Let's give you a quick walkthrough. The Argus series usually had a gray interior and a dove gray colored instrument panel. Now, this one's sort of beat up. It's got a lot of chips. She's seen some better days. The exterior is also pretty well chipped and worn. Just a little frazzled. Just needs a new paint job. Anyway, I want to show you a neat feature that I kind of hid in the panel. I don't know about you guys, but I really like to fly with autopilot now and then so that I can look around. I like to look around in the flight sim scenery. So to keep myself from going off course, using autopilot's really nice. And so I put one into the Fairchild. It's hidden. I wanted it as authentic as possible. But yeah, I did put a GPS in there, and also I've integrated the autopilot. It's a very basic autopilot, but it works. It's hidden in these headphone jacks. The front one is on, and the back one is off, and that's it. So if your avionics is on, you hit the front one, and that turns it on. That's a little double ding, like double engine room bells. It's like what a Zeppelin has, you know, something from the era I wanted. And then you have this neat little kill sound, and that's when it's shut off. So that lets you know that that your autopilot is on, and you should see it trim up. She's already trimmed. So what it does is it locks altitude and heading. So what you do when you want to turn on your autopilot is you line yourself up with the heading that you want, and then you level off and you hit that autopilot, and she will take over from there. So you'll notice that the fuel selector cups are now red in the Air Corps version. And let's see, let's go over a few more neat little features. These were sort of a vinyl plastic seat. They weren't, I don't think they were leather. They were a gray leather looking material. But in the museums, the Arguses usually have they look like a plastic vinyl. I don't know if they had vinyl back then, but that's what's in the aircraft. Anyway, I want to show you the radio. And the radio, this is an old Mark 12 Narco, and they're in a lot of the old photographs of the Fairchilds. Basically, the inner knob controlled this frequency, the back end of the frequency, and so you can mouse wheel that. And then this big outer knob, you would turn that to adjust the outer frequency. So you can either mouse wheel the wheel, or right in the little window, and that adjusts your frequency there. And then the mouse over will also give you the readout. The mouse over font also has the switch over frequency, but this doesn't use that, so just ignore that part. Just you can see what frequency you're at. 132.31 on this one. This is COM 1, NAV 1, and then your GPS is COM 2, NAV 2. This is a COM 2 unit, so it kind of shows you how that works. Now you can, in case I didn't tell you, you can pop up your various instruments. Here's your airspeed, RPM, and altitude. This is another one of the neat paint schemes for the Fairchild series. This one is an American bush plane. It too has seen some bad days, some rough flights, but not as bad as poor old Blue Louise. But anyway, this is with a float plane version selected. I'm kind of proud of those floats. I mean, they're not perfect, but I put a lot of work into them. I tried to make them as exact as possible from things that I could, information and brochures from that era that I could find on them. And they're kind of nice. They have little caps. These little caps are access plates to the inside of the cavities that are inside the floats. And so like you can put a pump in there and pump water out if there's, you know, they leak now and then. So and then your water rudders, they can retract. They're in the up position right now, when you only time you lower your water rudders is when you're in the water. When you're taking off, landing, flying, you want your water rudders up. And when you boot up into a float plane version Fairchild, you'll have a secondary stick, and that's your water rudder crank or lever, and you pull that, and that retracts your rudders. So let's see the turn, and you also have like another rudder unit down here in the back of the tail. All Fairchilds had these whenever they have their skirts. When they have their floats attached. So you'll have this rudder back here on the back bottom of the tail. And another neat thing, if you roll down the window and you touch the strut, you load a canoe. And I love this canoe. It's got a lot of detail on it. So like, let's say you're out in the backwoods of Alaska, or up in the Canadian territories. You got your canoe strapped on. You can go to a mountain lake and put down. Say you're delivering some hunters to their hunting location. So you got that neat little canoe there that you can attach. It's sort of like that era, the way they laminated canoes back then. It's an old antique, sort of like, you know, the aircraft. It's all from that era. That's kind of nice. I like that. Also, when you raise and lower the windows, you can just touch the edge of this weather stripping, and that also that will raise them up. This other bush plane, this yellow one, it's sort of it's had some really bad times. It's got some water damage to the interior. It's got some seats that have been redone years and years ago, and they're showing their age already. Probably redone, judging by the looks of it, they were redone in the 1970s. It's a nice little dinged up, weather-torn, kind of faded instrument panel. And I should probably tell you about the engines and their tachometers. You'll notice some of you guys that fly radial engines always go by a manifold pressure. With the Fairchilds, you didn't have interior adjustable props. They did have adjustable props. It was usually a prop that you adjusted with wrenches on the outside. You changed their pitch and then you tightened it back up and then flew. So you don't really use manifold pressure to judge your speed and so on, and throttle settings. So you would use your RPM gauge, your tachometer. So in this one, the radial engine, she will not go up. She has a red line. She will go higher than the red line, but you don't want to. They're fragile and expensive to have repaired. So you would keep it around the cruise zones. And I know it sounds like she's idling, and they do, but that was sufficient for flight, and it kept the life of your engine extended if you didn't ride the high RPMs up high. So, some neat camera views. Better raise those water rudders, huh? This is a really nice restored classic radio. She has a metallic burgundy paint scheme on like a bright white cream with gold pinstriping. You can just see the flecks of the metallic red in there from the metallic paint scheme. It's kind of nice. I love it. And on the interior, she's trimmed out with well, she has like a red metal window trim there, brushed metal forward window trim piece, this little part right here. and then some nice reddish mahogany burled wood on the instrument panel. She's really, I like to really decorate these, really make them look original. So she has reflections and stuff in the woodwork. So just wanted to show you some of the paint schemes that she has. Each aircraft, I think, really has a nice theme to her. A nice, I don't know what you would call it, character. Let's go back to base. And I want to show you one last aircraft. This is one of my favorites. I'd seen this aircraft on the front of a book. Beautiful color of yellow with a metallic green two-tone. It's really beautiful, sort of a taxi yellow. And I gave it an interior of a brown walnut burled wood on the instrument panel, gold trim, and dark, really dark, like a chocolate sort of brown color. And I gave her sort of a Connolly leather, almost a mustard yellow leather, sort of like what Ferraris have. Ferraris have sort of a mustard sort of yellow color. So this is a really nice little interior. Really like it. Little stitch work there on that grab strap. You'll notice even on the grab straps, they're high detail. They have like you can see how they're rounded and they're shaped. You know, it's not just a basic like strap there. And I don't know if I showed you this. There's your elevator trim. Sort of easy to use. You can just use your home and end keys to adjust that. Tap it, or it'll turn 2 or 3 times as you go through the trimming. You have about, I think, 3 revolutions each way. 2 or 3 revolutions on the crank. When Dad owned it, I was a little kid. He used to always be reaching up and trimming the aircraft. Let's see, these vents have wind effects. And when you're at good speed, let's jump in the air real quick. I'll go ahead and slew up. You can hear that wind noise. It's the sound the wind would be making if you've flown before and you open up a vent on a Cessna or some aircraft that has these ram air vents. That's the noise that they would make. So you can turn them on. You also have vents in the panels, and you have heaters. You can just barely hear it. Heater for front seat and back seat. So that's kind of nice. Have some wind noise up there. And that is about it. This kind of shows you how everything works in the Fairchild. I hope I haven't left anything out. They weren't a very sophisticated aircraft, but they were very stylish and really fun to fly, and you know, they were very forgiving as long as you didn't get under stall speed. Had a really tough suspension. Another neat feature about these planes, you'll notice this guy's shirt. They're usually color coordinated to the exterior of the aircraft, and I found some styles of 1940s shirts, men's shirts, on eBay, and so I used those to put on the pilots of these aircraft. So he's wearing a 1940s shirt to go out flying in. One of the neat little details I like to do with some of my aircraft. I'm kind of a detail freak. But anyway, that's the Fairchild. Hope you like it. If you get it, take care and happy flying.